Hey everyone, just wanted to do a quick rundown of the launcher collection that I now have. We've got a few on the list. All but one is homemade or relatively homemade with the assistance of some fine folks, but the final firearm or receiver was made by me. So starting at the bottom, the little launcher, we have the IWA ML37 flare launcher. It is a imported from Austria flare launcher. It shoots 37mm rounds. You can do bird bangs, smoke rounds, and a few other firework rounds for 4th of July and other signaling rounds. I may form one this if I can get a 40mm barrel eventually. But it's a really well made, commercially available flare launcher. There's some fine folks that make some really cool DIY versions, so check them out and check IWA out for signaling devices. The rest of these are now considered destructive devices, so a firearm with a bore over 1/2 inch, and they're all functional. So starting here, we have the Frankenfaust. It started life as a Panzerfaust 60 style firearm. We've modernized it to look more like the Panzerfaust 3, but the actual registered part is the main tube. So yeah, we've got a few different rounds. We have an RPG-7 style round. We have the anti-personnel style round for the RPG-7, and then we made a Panzerfaust 3 style round for this launcher. It is mostly 3D printed, but it does have a steel barrel. But these rounds are 3D printed chalk rounds, good cheap plinking rounds. You can't store them loaded, so when we get to the range, we load the ammunition and we fire them. So that's the Frankenfaust. Up here we have the M202 Flash, which is our most recent completed project. It fires 66mm rockets. We use chalk, but the originals fired incendiary rockets. It does have 4 barrels. It's mostly 3D printed, a couple reinforcement parts that are made of either aluminum or steel. We have a Panzerfaust, a Super Bazooka M20 scope. Someone was generous enough to donate for this project. We came up with a mounting system, so in theory you can put other Picatinny style optics on this. And you have the rocket clip barrels. So these are aluminum barrels, they're the rocket clip barrels, and then the main barrels are carbon fiber. And then you have your selection for which barrel you want to fire. So we've got we fired a few rounds out of this one. The book is out now. And then our first rocket launcher, this is a recoilless gun, so it's not technically a rocket launcher. But the first rocket launcher we made was this Fliegerfaust, which was a World War II early manpad. So it fired nine unguided 20mm rockets. It was used at the very end of the war. There's very little surviving information about it, but we made a functional replica and we've fired quite a few rounds through it. But it is a fascinating piece of history here. And then this one on the tripod is our latest build, which resembles the look of an M47 Dragon, but you'll notice instead of one big barrel, it has 3 smaller barrels. And that is because we are doing a hyper velocity rocket out of this. We're still work in progress on that, but we shall have black powder rounds to fire in the meantime while we work on the propellants and the other advanced motor cases that we need to do for that project. But the top barrel is made out of steel, so we can fire black powder rounds similar to the Frankenfaust. And then the bottom 2 barrels are aluminum, and those are for the main rockets, and they're about 2-inch diameter, and the rocket will fill most of the entire length of this launcher. They're pretty long rockets, but pretty skinny too. We've got a Carl Gustav optic in here. You have your firing mechanism. You hold down an arming button, and then you press down on the lever and you fire the launcher. We're still got to do some of the wiring. Some of the cables will come through here. We have an onboard computer that will make a sound when you arm it, and then when you fire it, it'll obviously make its own sound. To adjust the optic, you take this cover off. You change the settings on the optic, like windage and elevation. So we've got this sighted in now, bore sighted through the top barrel. And yeah, that we should have more videos of this one firing soon. But it is quite big compared to all the other launchers. Let me get them all in frame. But yeah. I used to think this was the really big one until we had to get one that's mounted to it's actually a Milan, or I'm sure I'm butchering that, a Milan ATGM bipod, and then we used a heavy steel tripod mount, and we printed some adapters. We're going to print these out of carbon fiber nylon soon. It'll look like with this black filament. But yeah, it's a recoilless gun and a rocket launcher all in one, so it doesn't have a ton of recoil, so you can make these parts out of plastic. So I wouldn't fire a breech loaded traditional anti-tank gun with such mounts, but we got some leeway. But yeah, thanks for checking out the collection. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below. If you're interested in supporting, you can pick up a copy of our books. So we sell historical books on the launchers we make. We got a book on the original Panzerfaust 60, a book on the M202, and a book on the Fliegerfaust. I'll do a separate video on the history of the rockets, a brief history on the rockets for this one. The main part of the project is the rocket itself. We just needed a cool launcher to fire the rockets out of. So we based it off the M47 Dragon and slightly modified it to work with our design. So thank you, have a great day, and bye.